Hello and welcome to ISAC Academy Linux course. This is the second lesson in which we will be discussing what Linux is suitable for your particular needs. To start off with, what you see in front of you is Tux, the Linux penguin. He is the mascot. He is similar to the Windows logo for Microsoft Windows. This logo is used as a general logo for any kind of Linux, and you will quite often see the specific symbol for the distribution on his stomach, or it may also be on its own. As we covered in the first lesson, there are many different types of Linux out there and available to you. Your particular needs or goals are what determines the best option for you. In our course, we will be using Ubuntu to teach all of the different aspects that we cover in this course. However, for the most part, you should be able to use these principles on any other distribution, with some minor possibilities of incompatibility between different distributions, mostly related to where files are stored. As a natural result of this, you will also find that some software that is available on one distribution may not be compatible without some work in porting it over on another distribution. This does not mean that you cannot use that application, just that you have to do extra work in order to get it running. Each distribution of Linux has a different design goal, although there are those that share design goals either completely or in part. Generally, these design goals fall into some major categories, such as speed or efficiency, perhaps compatibility, as is the case with Ubuntu, or other things such as stability or security. There are many Linux enthusiasts that believe that Linux should be designed for fast and efficient code, as these were the original design goals on many applications for Linux. This has, however, changed over time due to the availability of cheap, powerful hardware, and as such is less of an issue these days. However, some people still believe that this should be the case. A lot of people will actually prefer a secure system and hence use Linux for that purpose. While it is true that Linux can be more secure, it is not always more secure, and care should be taken to make sure that you are using a hardened system rather than one of the other types. Other types of systems are desktop systems and server systems. Desktop systems are more designed for home users, as are most versions of Microsoft Windows. However, in keeping with that example, one can also see that there are Microsoft Windows Server operating systems. These are not to be confused with the desktop variety of which most home users would be using. Linux is also segregated in this way, with desktop systems such as Ubuntu and server systems which can also be Ubuntu based. However, there are distributions specifically designed for servers, much as SUSE is these days. In the workplace, the vast majority of Linux systems that you would come across will most likely be server systems, and will, as a result, more than likely also be designed to be secure, and also have a design goal of being fast and efficient. These may actually be somewhat opposite, as writing code that is secure can quite often be slower and less efficient as a result of that security. In many cases, a server system will not have a graphical user interface, and as such will need to be operated via the command line, where knowing each of the commands by heart is much more simplistic for the system's administration than having to constantly look them up. Linux can also be found in embedded systems. An example of this would be phones and cars. However, there are other embedded systems, which is why I've put this as a separate dot point. Some examples might be a utility such as gas or electricity, using them in control systems to regulate whatever utility they provide. Linux can also be found in phones. As a prime example, Android is a Linux derivative and utilizes the Linux kernel. There are also attempts at present to have Ubuntu as a phone operating system. Nokia also has a Linux-based phone operating system, however, due to its popularity, is considerably less known. Another place that you may find a Linux system is in a car. This is less popular, however, there are many people who have opted to hack at their cars, and as such find the power, speed and efficiency of Linux to be of great value when they are tweaking the computers inside their own car. There have also been reports of people using Linux on their head units in their cars for their CDs and DVD playing. Other devices that I have not listed here do exist. As a prime example, one of the more popular options at present is a device called a Raspberry Pi, the spelling of which is normal for raspberry. However, pi is the mathematical symbol, is actually spelt out as PI rather than PIE. This device is a low-cost, low-powered computing system that fits roughly in the palm of a hand. It costs, the last time I checked, around $25 US. However, a case is not provided, nor is a monitor or any input device. There are, however, ports available, and searching for Raspberry Pi you will see all of the information you could need from their website. This is one of the many examples where the design goal has been to provide cheap but usable hardware for educational purposes in countries where such things are considered to be too expensive to actually teach to young children or even older individuals. A simple online search for Linux embedded systems or simply embedded Linux will provide you with a lot more examples rather than simply Raspberry Pi. As I stated previously, we will be using Ubuntu Linux for the educational materials that we will be providing throughout this course. However, should you have any issues with following the material presented, it should be very simplistic in order to solve those issues with simple searches. Otherwise, the other options may be listed during the material depending on the situation. Thank you for watching this lesson. Our next lesson will be on Linux file systems.